News and Views with Eliott Rodriguez, on the air and on the web.
Welcome back. For 80 years now, the Miami Lighthouse has been a beacon of hope. From its earliest days, it has provided vocational training and social services for the blind and visually impaired. And it helped start one of the world's best facilities for vision treatment, the Bascom Palmer Eye Institute at the University of Miami. But Miami Lighthouse doesn't just help the blind. It has a history of relying on blind and visually impaired people to manage and design its programs. Joining me now is Virginia Jacko. She's the president and CEO of Miami Lighthouse. She is a former client of the Miami Lighthouse, having lost her sight to retinitis pigmentosa. And welcome to the show, Virginia. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Eliott. Thanks for this opportunity.
And happy anniversary to Miami Lighthouse. Tell me a little bit about the history of the organization. It dates back 80 years?
We were founded in 1931. A woman came to Miami named Dolly Gamble. And she said to her friend Helen Keller, there aren't any blind people in Miami. And you know, back then, someone like me, probably as a child, would have been put in an institution. And that's just what happened. So Helen Keller said, we will start a place for the blind in Miami. And it began in 1931. The first board of directors were the Miami Rotary Club and the Miami Lions Club. And then in 1935, Colonel Schutz, founder of Schutz & Bowen Law Firm, said to one of his attorneys, Preston Pravat, we need to incorporate that place. This is one of our first nonprofit social service agencies in Miami, and Schutz & Bowen, ever since then, has been helping us with pro bono legal services. That's the kind of commitment the community has had for Miami Lighthouse.
What sort of services back then in those early days were provided for people who were visually impaired?
Thank you for asking, because the expectations of the blind were so low. So they would weave, they would make brooms, and they would sell things on the corner. And then as they were doing these things, they would practice their Braille. And you know, today, we have people with mainstream employment because the blind can do so much.
Okay, if the microphone is picking up a little sound, it's you're seeing eye dog Kieran, who is very comfortable right now, but that's just fine, just in case people were wondering. And tell me about the connection between Miami Lighthouse and Bascom Palmer, which year after year is rated one of the top eye hospital in the country.
I like to say that in Miami, we have the two #1 places, the Bascom Palmer Eye Institute for our ophthalmologists, and when they can't help anymore, or when you need a low vision exam, then you go to the #1 vocational rehabilitation program, or the #1 Center for Low Vision Services, that is the Miami Lighthouse. And so it was Bascom Palmer, an ophthalmologist in the late 40s, early 50s, who was chairman of our board of directors. And he said to our board, we need to do eye research. We need to help the indigent of Miami. So our board of directors raised the money, the first $500,000, and we had the right to the land, which is where the parking is. Back then, the Lighthouse had the right to the land from the county for a parking service operated by the blind. It was a flat surface parking. So our board of directors signed that property over to Dr. Bascom Palmer, and they gave them the seed funding. And then when they started the Ann Bates Leach Hospital, we gave them another $300,000. Sometimes I think in the early 50s. That's a lot of money. And so we are truly the people that provided the seed money for Dr. Bascom Palmer. Unfortunately, he died a few years later. And then Dr. Norton came down, and of course we all know the history of excellence at the Bascom Palmer Eye Institute.
Virginia, tell me your story and how you lost your sight, and you were actually a client of the Miami Lighthouse, and now you're the CEO of the organization.
I relocated to Miami with one purpose, to come to the Miami Lighthouse, because coming from Indiana, if you lose your vision there, you know, you might be able to go live at a drug halfway house, and a bus will pick you up and take you to a sheltered workshop place, and you can learn your Braille there. That was not what I wanted to do. And I had a daughter teaching at FIU who was actually interested in adjusting the computer for the visually impaired. She was using some people at the Lighthouse, people at Bascom Palmer, and she said, Mom, you've got to relocate to Miami, and I did. And I walked in those doors at 601 Southwest 8th Avenue saying, I hope they can help me. And when they said, what do you want to be able to do? I said, use my computer again, have my mobility, take the metro, fly on an airplane, not be afraid and be able to live alone. And that's just what the Miami Lighthouse did for me. It even taught me, how do you do makeup? How do you make cookies? How do you live alone? We call that independent living skills. And when I finished the 3-month program, I left saying, I am committing the rest of my life to helping the visually impaired, because through blindness, I found my passion.
Okay, I want to ask you, because we live in a society now where everything is done with the computer. Email, internet, social networking, where does that leave blind folks and people who are visually impaired? And what is the role of Miami Lighthouse? But we're going to take a break. I want to take a break, and I want to continue my conversation with you, all right?
Thank you.
Virginia Jacko of the Miami Lighthouse. We'll be right back after the break.
News and Views with Eliott Rodriguez, on the air and on the web.
Welcome back. My guest this morning is Virginia Jacko. She is the CEO of Miami Lighthouse, which has been providing services to the blind and visually impaired in South Florida for 80 years now. And Virginia, let's talk about computers and what the Miami Lighthouse is doing to make people who are visually impaired and blind be able to send emails, be able to go on the internet.
Both in our job readiness program and in our vocational rehabilitation program, we teach the blind how to use any Microsoft product. I run another software called JAWS, Job Application with Speech, and so with keystroke commands, I can ask the monitor, say the next word, say the next letter, go to the next file, go to the internet, and they're all lots of keystroke commands. And so the computer is something that enables the blind to have mainstream employment. And that's why the Marriott Worldwide Call Center here in Miami recently hired 5 of our totally blind people. Marriott reached out to us. They installed this additional software called JAWS. And so these blind people have mainstream employment here in Miami. And that's only one example. What unfortunately happens is software designers forget about the visually impaired, and they assume, oh, well, the visually impaired just can't use this. As long as they have text behind those graphics, and the computer then reads the text, a blind person can use the computer.
You also have a program, I believe it's called HICAN, which is a mobile eye care. Tell me about that.
The HICAN Children's Vision Program, which we recently called now the Florida HICAN Children's Vision Program, LLC, provides free eye care to needy children. It began by the Dade County Optometric Association in 1992, and we merged in 2007. So this past school year, over 6,000 needy children who failed at the school their vision screening, the school referred these children to us. We ensured that they didn't have any insurance or any way for the parents to pay for the glasses. And then with the help of the Department of Health, the Children's Trust, many donors and foundations, 6,000 children who otherwise in school would continue to have struggled received a comprehensive eye exam and glasses when prescribed. And interestingly enough, 75% of those children examined needed prescription glasses. And of course, we paid for them and provided them, and now they're in the classroom succeeding. That's a great outcome.
That's wonderful. What is the Blind Babies program?
The Blind Babies program is for mothers, caretakers, and their babies. Blindness is on the rise at both ends of the age spectrum because preemies now are viable at 20 weeks, and the retina is one of the last organs to develop. So blind babies are on the increase. We have over 100 children in our Blind Babies program. Our children's specialists go into the homes, to the daycare centers, and we have programs at the Lighthouse like Mother's Play Days, and a big emphasis on pre-Braille and Braille literacy for our children.